Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Three Girls, One Monthly Catch Up, where we are here to talk with each other and with you about what we each have been up to. So, today we are covering the month of March, and we have our categories. And we're actually going to start off with Tarot and Oracle. So, Heather is up first. What have you been working with, or what did you work with in the month of March?
I only worked with 2 decks in the month of March, and I worked with an Oracle and a Tarot, and I actually worked with them separately. I got the Tarot of Oneness after our live where Sarah showed it, and I was like, oh, it's so cute, I have to have it. It's mini, and it's so cute.
Minis.
So I got that at the end of the month that comes before March, February. And and I worked with it all month, and it is, it really is a nice little deck. I love the artwork, and it reads really well. I actually have decided that I would like all of my decks in this size. It's really easy to hold, it's really easy to shuffle, it's really easy to just lay out loads of cards in a small space, which I'm loving. The card stock is good, so it looks really thick, but actually it shuffles really easily. So, and I've just played with it a lot, and it's one of those decks where I'm like, because I like it, I just like to look at it more than anything. I want to use it all the time. So I have been like just finding random spreads online so that I could pull it out and do a random reading with it and stuff. And it has also taught me that I actually have a real fondness for decks that change the court cards, the names of the court cards. I like, because this one is I think it's inspiration,
action,
spirit, and
is it like guardian?
Let me see if I can find a king.
Embodiment. It's the embodiment.
Yeah. And I really like that. I think for me, it just makes it so much easier to get a handle on what each of those court cards are about. And I'm a bit like meh about page, knight, queen, king. I'm not saying take it away. I wouldn't necessarily scrap it, but I'm really discovering a fondness for decks that change it and do something a bit different with the naming and the conventions. So, but yeah, I really like this. And I think, Sarah, when you showed it, you were saying that one of the things you like about it is something that I found I really liked about it as well, is that it's the way that the card is done and the perspective that you have as the viewer when you're looking at the card is really interesting and kind of puts you as the, I want to say protagonist. I mean, it's not a book, but you know what I mean, of that reading. So I really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed it. Also, I just love this card, so I'm just going to show you it because it just makes me smile. So I had a really good time with it. It's one that I'm sure I'll get out loads. I may even find a nice bag for it so I can carry it around with me because it's just the right size for that. And then I was doing just a separate daily draw with the Love Your Inner Goddess as well. I just, I really felt like I needed some like daily positive messages to get me through March. And I love this deck. I like the art style. I like the cards. I really like the information in the guidebook. And it's just been nice to draw a card and just read the guidebook and like take a message into my day. I did get to a point where I had the same card 4 days in a row. And I was like, okay, is this card bent? Is there something wrong with it? But there wasn't. I don't know. It just kept coming up over and over and over again. This one, in fact, I had it 4 days in a row. And then I would have a gap of like 2 or 3 days where I'd get something different. And then I got this one again. All right, whatever it is you're trying to tell me, fine.
Man,
Exactly.
that drives me. That's been happening lately with me with the 6 of Wands for some reason. And I'm like, what does this means nothing to me. And yet, and been in multiple decks. I've just been drawing the Six of Wands over and over and over again. And then in a different deck, I start drawing the Six of Wands over and over. And I'm like, what? Seriously? Okay. I know I'm not getting the picture here, but like,
help me out.
Help me out. I need more to work with. Okay.
I liked doing the like daily draw because I've changed the way that I do my daily draws because my planner has changed. So I liked having a tarot and some kind of oracle as two separate things rather than combining them together. So I'm doing the same in April because I'm enjoying doing that at the moment.
Tarot wise, I spent the month mostly with the Magical Tarot. So this is the deck. It comes with the book Magical Tarot, and it's just a deck created to accompany the book. I really enjoy this. It's literally just a Rider-Waite-Smith deck with a limited color palette that's been redrawn by Stacia Burrington, whose artwork I really enjoy. So, and there's really not much else to say about this. This is a very like functional deck. Like it's great. I really like the aesthetic of it. I enjoyed working with it. Beyond that, there's not much to say. It's Rider-Waite-Smith. From an oracle standpoint, what I've been trying to do lately is work with oracles that have been in my collection for a while that I find myself not reaching for very often, just to sort of like give them a whole month and check and see, like, do I really still need to have this in my collection? And so the oracle that I worked with in March is the Illuminated Earth Oracle, because it's another oracle. I've had this for ages, and I just like, I don't reach for it very often. And it's a beautiful oracle. Like, this is one that I know is a real workhorse for a lot of people. And the artwork of it is really cool. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. I think it has a good assortment of keywords. I think the artwork is lovely. I think there's a lot of things that really work well about it. But for some reason, I never get excited to work with it. And like, because of my sort of not super close relationship with Oracle, if I'm not super excited about working with the deck, I don't work with it. And there's a lot of cards in this that I really like a lot, but after giving it an entire month, I think I'm pretty set on saying, yeah, I don't get excited enough about reaching for this deck that I don't think it needs to stay in my collection. So this, I think, is another one that is going to be finding its way into the rehoming pile. I had a fine experience with it. Like, it was fine.
It was okay.
Yeah, no, you can tell. It's like, yeah, it was.
You know, so I don't think I need it. So this is good, because this is really helping me take some things that I've like just sort of had hanging around for a long time and almost sort of held onto them more, because, you know, I know that they're very well appreciated decks by a lot of people, you know, but for some reason they don't light my world on fire for whatever reason. And with Oracle, if it doesn't light my world on fire, I'm not going to reach for it. So there's only one other thing to mention, and this will be quick, which is that the Ethereal Visions Luna edition, you might recall that I bought this deck because Six of Wands, look at that right on the top. It reminds me of a particular friend of mine. And I finally, during March, used this deck to read for that friend. And it was hilarious. It was like the most bonkers accurate, like ridiculous. It was so like every card I was like, oh, for God's sake. Like I like laughed out loud when I did the reading, because it was so funny. Like, I don't know. Anyway, so clearly the deck does really like her, I guess.
To read her for filth.
It was so funny. It was so funny. It was like she asked a question about romance, and it was like Two of Cups, the lovers. I mean, I was like laying down all these 10 cups. I was like laying down and just being like, oh, for God's sake, like seriously, like you had to be like that on the nose. Like, that's just almost embarrassing. Like, come on. Like, come on.
For me,
Anyway.
I spent March predominantly focusing on my pip decks. You know, I was doing kind of my March of the pips. And so I actually worked with several decks, you know, including the Magical Tarot, not Sarah's Magical Tarot, but a different Magical Tarot style. And what else? Squid Cake Marseille. There are a couple others as well. But I would say the highlight would probably be this one right here, which is the Tarot Siren, I think is how you say it.
Mm-hmm.
So actually, Sarah gifted this to me. Oh, sorry, getting the shine, but and I do think it is out of print, but it's this kind of mermaid Marseille style deck that I wrote all over during one of my Marseille studies. And so this is the one that I actually used all month long. So no matter which tarot deck I was using, I would also have this deck alongside it to pull out the same card that I would draw from that other deck to get just kind of, you know, two different versions, to see which like key phrases I wrote down. So that was a lot of fun. That this was a nice way to work with this deck. And so and I have it in order so that or I thought I had it in order. Maybe I mixed it up. No, it's in order. So that yeah, I can just easily find the cards that I need. But this is I just love the illustrations of this deck so much. It's just so much fun. And yeah, so like this is the type of Marseille that I like. You know, I'm just not super into like the classic Italian and those other styles, but this I can totally do. So this one was a big highlight. And then also like I did work with the Squid Cake Marseille, but then I also found that I just would keep the book out as well because I really like the book and it's a nice little refresher, you know. So like these two kind of together just served as like nice refreshers on Marseille. So did that, and then also in March, every week I would pull from this deck, which is the Cup of Contemplation cards, which is a deck that I made. And so each week I would just begin the week pulling from this deck, and then you know journal on it or just contemplate on it. And I would keep it out on my reading table. And it was the cards that I drew every week were pretty annoyingly accurate and on the nose to you know my situations, my headspace, etc. So annoying and yet appreciated, you know, that kind of thing. So I've been enjoying getting this one out. And then finally, this has been like the highlight oracle for me, which I've talked about to death. So, but oh well, doing it again, which is this one. It's the Wisdom of the Wild Things Oracle. So it's just this has also been it's just been that like naggy like guardian figure giving me talking about stalker cards. This has given me at least like 2 or 3 stalker cards. I just feel like it's being a naggy bitch, but again, in a way I appreciate, you know. So because the messages that do keep coming up are ones that I understand why they keep coming up. So I just love this deck so much, and I just love the imagery. I think the guidebook is well written.
I don't think I know. As you were showing it, I was like, oh, I like this. I don't think I've ever seen it.
Angie Sullins.
No, I don't think I've ever seen that.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah, I've shown it in a few of my more recent videos. So it is like a more recent acquisition.
Oh, I'm really behind.
I haven't showed it on the 3.
Why then?
I'm sorry.
As I'm really behind on YouTube, that might be why then.
Oh yeah, it is a more recent acquisition. I have never showed it on the 3 girls. Like this is the first time showing it on the 3 girls. So it's so good.
I actually now I will say there are a few big head, big eyes characters in there, which is the only thing that has deterred me from buying it so far. Because aside from that, I really love all of the weird little characters in that. And as I've looked at it, I've just been like, actually, this is really appealing to me. And these weird, creepy little cute, I don't know, they really hit the sweet spot for me as far as like cute and creepy.
There may be a few that lend a little more creepier than others, but on the whole, I just find each and every one of them endearing and charming in their own way. And overall, I love the key titles and what's written in the guidebook. It really does. The messages always hit home. At least they always have for me thus far. And so that's why I haven't despite my low-key annoyance with it, I still love it so much that I haven't stopped using it since I've got it.
Yeah.
So next category, let's talk about books. Heather.
I didn't have a great reading month. I didn't have a bad reading month. I really enjoyed, I enjoyed everything that I read, but there was nothing that was like, oh my God, that was mind-blowingly good. I want to tell the whole world about it. I finished A Day of Fallen Night by Samantha Shannon, which is like the prequel to The Priory of the Orange Tree, but you don't need to have read both, or you don't need to read them in any particular order. You don't need to read both of them. It's the thing with epic fantasies, especially when they're so big, is they take me forever. So it's taken me 8 weeks to read it because I just take my time with it. And it was good. I did enjoy it. I did really enjoy it. I didn't enjoy it as much as I enjoyed Priory, but I'm not sure if that's because it wasn't as good or because when I read Priory, I was still quite new to epic fantasy. And now I'm more like versed in that particular genre. My expectations are higher. So I did enjoy it, but I definitely remember enjoying Priory more. And then the other thing I did, which I did as an audiobook, was The Tainted Cup by Robert Jackson Bennett, which I've never read from before. He's apparently quite well known in like the fantasy kind of world, but I've never read from him before. But this is another like fantasy mystery, and the world building in this was amazing. And it's very Sherlock Holmes. So you've got like these two characters. You've got a detective who's a genius, but also very, very eccentric, never goes outside, wears a blindfold all the time. And then her like companion who is new to the role, and the way that they complement each other and work together is really enjoyable. I had a really, really good time. It's the first one in a trilogy, and I'll definitely read the next one. My only issue that I struggled with to start with, and I almost switched to physical copy, was I was struggling with the narrator. I just didn't really like, to begin with, I didn't really like the narrator's style or the way that the voices that he did for the different characters. And to begin with, I was like, I don't know if I can do this. But once it got going and I got used to it, I was fine. But it's funny because we were just talking about this last month as well. And it definitely, I think that's the first time where I've had a narrator where I'm like, oh, I'm interested in this story, but I just don't know if I can do it with this particular person telling me the story. Oh, I read another Emily Henry, which I think I'm now caught up on all of her books that are currently out, but one comes out this month. But I read another Emily Henry. I read Beach Read, about two authors who are living next door to each other, and they write very different. One's a romance writer and one writes like literary male fiction. That's the thing. I don't know what that is, but
that means okay.
like books for men. I don't know. And they decide to have a competition of writing each other's genre. And it's obviously a love story. It was good. I really enjoyed it. I mean, I enjoyed it so much I read it in one day. So
wow. Okay. Cool.
I'm low-key obsessed with Emily Henry at this point, I think. I will probably read everything that she writes.
So just to go back to our narrators who potentially ruined the book for us. So I read, because we are reading Nettle and Bone by T. Kingfisher, I got the audiobook of another one of T. Kingfisher's books, which is called A House with Good Bones. And there were a lot of things I liked about that book. I mean, the book is basically about like generational trauma in a Southern family, right? And it's this, woman goes home to stay with her mom because she's like recently lost her job. She's an entomologist, and basically like her mom is back to living in the grandma's old house, and it's like very clear that some weird haunting-esque stuff is going on in this house, despite the fact that it's just like a suburban tract house that was built in like the 90s. It's like a lot of weird haunting type of stuff is happening, and there's a bunch of vultures in the neighborhood that won't go away, and like all this stuff. Anyway, so it was a fun ghost story, and like the themes and everything were really good. My only issue with it is that it takes place in North Carolina, because the main character is female, the narrator is female, and like I really enjoyed the voice of the main character. Like she had just a very it was in first person. She had like a very kind of snarky, entertaining voice in terms of telling the story. But the main male character and love interest of the book sounded like Huckleberry Hound. Like the woman who did who did the voice made him sound like Huckleberry Hound, and I could not deal with it. Was like I cannot. This is our romantic hero. And he sounds like a cartoon, and I could not take it seriously. Like it was so distracting. So anyway, that was my bad audiobook narrator experience of the month of March. But I mean, aside from that, I think it was a pretty good book. Like it was one of those another book where I'm not exactly sure how much that kind of messed it up for me, like how much more atmospheric it might have been if I hadn't been so distracted and amused by that particular voice. As far as other books I read, I'm about halfway through Doppelganger by Naomi Klein, which is really, really interesting so far. And that is a book about Naomi Klein is a journalist who's written some very famous books and frequently gets confused with another author named Naomi Wolf, who was a kind of a big deal in terms of feminist circles in the 90s. She wrote this book called The Beauty Myth, which I personally read in high school, and it blew my little mind, and I was like, oh my God, Naomi Wolf. But then, in recent years, she had a experience where a book of hers was like completely discredited, like live on television before it was even published. It ended up getting pulped by the publisher. Her whole reputation was basically destroyed. And since then, she has completely gone down the rabbit hole of like conspiracy theories and COVID denialism. And this other woman, Naomi Klein, who gets confused for Naomi Wolf a lot, has started kind of suffering some of the brunt of it. And so she wrote an entire book about what this experience has been like. And so this whole concept of like having a doppelganger and like what it means, especially because Naomi Klein is very famous for, like, her most famous book that she wrote is called No Logo, which is basically a book all about the evils of branding. And now she's having to grapple with the fact that Naomi Wolf is basically destroying Naomi Klein's personal brand. And like what as a person who's fully written this entire book critiquing branding, what does it mean that this damage is now being done to me, to my personal brand? Anyway, it's really interesting. Like I said, I'm only about halfway through it, but it is extremely interesting so far. I finished the 5th and 6th books in the Dark Tower series, and they are bonkers weird, and I don't even know what to say about them. So I'm not.
Fair enough.
I have nothing to say there. It very strange. Don't know how I feel. Started the 7th one. I don't know. I just don't know. Anyway, yeah.
Well, I didn't do that much reading, but I don't read a lot that lately. I DNF'd a couple, and this one is one that I did get through, and I am shocked that I got through it, because given my lack of focus, this was probably not the book to start and try to finish, which is This Is How You Lose the Time War. Have either of you read this?
No,
I haven't. No.
Okay.
Is this the one with letters?
Yes. So this is about these two like rival war agents. They're like android agents for these two like factions. They're warring factions. One is very tech-centric, technology, computer-centric. The other is very like nature, organic matter. So, you've got these two ends of the spectrum. And so they're warring, and you've got these two agents who just start this correspondence with each other. And so through these letters that they're sending to each other, they start to develop a relationship. So it's kind of all about this growing connection between the two, while each are trying to essentially win the war for their side. So these kind of opposing intentions, muddied by the fact that they're growing to really care about each other. This doesn't look that long. It's like 180 some pages, but let me tell you, it don't let that fool you. If you're interested in reading this, it is going to take some focus because there is, I mean, at least for me, it did. It took actually a great deal of focus. And I'm like, do I DNF this or not? But I kind of wanted to know, you know what I mean? It was interesting enough that that overrode the frustration of like, what the fuck is going on right now? So it took me kind of like a core of the way, and, you know, having to reread some parts to feel like I had an idea of maybe what was going on. And then by the time I read it, I went online to look at, you know, synopses and reviews to see if I indeed understood what I in fact read, you know, and turns out, yes, okay, so I did understand this. I totally missed that. But I will say that, I mean, I finished it, so it was worth the read. This is literary fiction. So if anybody who likes literary fiction, you know, this is a book to try in that it's, I mean, I will say, given that this is two authors writing together, is very seamless, in my opinion. It did lend a bit, at least for me, in parts to like purple prose, but it wasn't so bad that it turned me off completely. It was nothing like that. It's, you know, it's a style thing, my personal preference and the kind of writing style that I like to read. So I felt like it did lean there sometimes, but other than that, for it being two authors, pretty fluid. Just the plot and the storyline, it's, you know, it's pretty engaging. It's pretty clever. Next up, we have TV and movies. Heather, what did you watch?
So I watched on Disney Plus. There's a series called Death and Other Details, and it's like it's a murder mystery on a cruise ship, kind of like a Agatha Christie and the type style, with Mandy, what's his name, who was in The Princess Bride. Yeah. As the like the main detective, and it was fine. It honestly, it was just fine. It ended with a huge setup for a second season, which, to be completely honest, I have no intention of watching. But I'm not disappointed that I watched the first series, and I watched it all the way through to the end, and I wanted to know what happened, and the acting was fine. It was okay. It was fine. The other TV series that I've started watching is Monk, because that's on Netflix, and I've seen random episodes here and there, but I've never done it all the way through, and it's got them all. So I think I'm nearly halfway through season 3, and I mean, it's totally my thing. I love any kind of crime serial stuff. It's a thing that I'm the same with mystery thriller books. It's such like popcorn candy type stuff for me that I really enjoy them. I'm struggling sometimes with Monk, because sometimes his like idiosyncrasies and like clear like OCD and stuff is handled really well, and other times it's handled so poorly and played up for laughs that it becomes uncomfortable. And they never seem to find the balance from one episode to the next, and so I'm finding that difficult sometimes. But overall, I'm really enjoying it. And then I watched Nope, the film by Jordan Peele. So I quite like Jordan Peele as a director and a writer. Everything he's done, I've really enjoyed. Nope is like I'm not really sure. It's like a sci-fi Western, modern Western horror, with like this brother and sister who own their horse wranglers. They're right at the beginning. Their dad dies in this really freak incident, and they're trying to like save their business. And they've got next door, there's like an amusement park which is run by, I cannot remember the actor's name.
Stephen Yeun, I think.
Yeah. And they keep like basically selling their horses to him because they've got no money, and weird shit starts to happen, and they like they realize that there's something in the clouds, and it's an alien film. It's basically an alien film. It's 2 hours long, and for the first 45 minutes, like literally nothing happens. It's so slow, but it's never boring. It just does this really slow, like, I really like that. It's a thing that I really like, but doesn't work for everybody, where it just does this real slow build up of stuff that by the time the action starts happening, you've been lulled into this false sense of security, and you're like, oh shit, what's going on? No, it wasn't my favorite though. I think Get Out is 100 times better.
Get Out is a masterpiece. That's
yeah. I mean, like, in terms of like those 3 major films that he's probably most well known for, I think Get Out is like just blows so much horror out the water. But it did make me laugh to myself, because there were moments in the film where you're watching what's happening to them, and they're having to make decisions, or something appears in front of them or whatever, and your reaction is to go, nope, 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 hell no. And you're like, oh, I get it. I totally get it.
TV series wise, aside from my normal Murder, She Wrote, I did start watching Shogun, which I think is very well done, and I'm very much enjoying. I think I'm 4 episodes in. I think I might be an episode or 2 behind. But I do think it's extremely well done. I'm thoroughly enjoying it. I'm very, very involved in it. I think it's a well done series, and I'm really glad that they have done a new take on that material that actually allows the Japanese characters to be the focus of the story. So I think that that's really cool. The other kind of main thing that I suppose that I watched in March, which took me several days because I had kind of a hard time getting through it, was Poor Things. Not because it's a bad movie. From the perspective of craft and acting and all of those things, it is incredibly well done. I understand exactly what it is trying to say. It's just wildly uncomfortable to watch for a lot of reasons. It's one of those movies where it's like I can very much appreciate what the vision was here of like what the actors and what the director was trying to accomplish, but I can only watch it 20 minutes at a time because it makes me so uncomfortable. I think Emma Stone was mind-blowing in it. One of the most amazing performances like I've ever seen, ever. But it was hard to watch.
In the month of March, Matt and I finished both season 3 and season 4 of Peaky Blinders. Well, we watched most of season 4. I think we finished April 1st. So, and yeah, we'll probably go on to season 5. I mean, for me, season 3 I wasn't about it. I did not find that one to be particularly entertaining. And so I was like, oh, am I losing the spark with this? I don't know. But then season 4, I found that I enjoyed way more. It had Adrian Brody in it, so I'm kind of a fan. And so and just the storyline of that season I felt was stronger than the 3rd season. They're just horrible people. So that kind of gets to be frustrating.
They were.
Yeah. It's like the problem with any mob or gangster movie. And I always have this problem too. I'm just like, stop doing crimes and your problems will be over. Like,
God, you just bring this on yourself.
Good job.
Oh my God. Yeah, exactly. So we did that. And then we're also continuing with Shogun as well. And we watched the latest episode yesterday. Yeah. So continuing to really enjoy it. I think just all around it's a strong show so far. So I'm really enjoying that. And then movies, we watched Mary and the Witch's Flower, which is an older Japanese animation. It is not Studio Ghibli, but it's a different studio. But the founder of that studio used to work at Studio Ghibli. And I think the director of this movie also used to work at Studio Ghibli. So you could... Just the style of the movie felt very much in the vein of Studio Ghibli. And we enjoyed it. It's just about this schoolgirl named Mary, and she happens upon this what's it called, fly by night flower. So it's this like mysterious magical flower that gives you witchy abilities temporarily. And so, and of course, this is a flower that hadn't been found for a time. So now that it's sprung up and, she's discovered this flower, some bad people have also, discovered that, oh, wow, okay, this flower has now resurfaced and they want to do bad things, so it was a fun time. And then we also went to see Dune 2. I much would have rather have waited to stream it, but Matt wanted to see it in the theater. Even though it was long and it felt long, I can't say I was bored at any point. I can't say I felt like I was, anything was lagging, or if I try to think of places they could have like pared down with the editing of the film, like I can't really say that there were too many scenes that I felt were extraneous or anything like that. So
world building is so important in Dune. Like,
is
you need to devote attention to the world building to make it all make sense and make it all work. So
and they do it so masterfully. I mean, it's just really well done, really well done. So I can't be mad at the 3 hours because it was all around I thought a good film, entertaining. The score is amazing, but just know it is a longer movie. Final category we have is our wild card, where we talk about just random general life updates and what we've been up to, any hobbies that we've been involved in, etc. So Heather, up to you.
I have a few things to talk about this time, actually. So not really hobbies wise, I suppose, but I didn't really know where else to put it. But I listened to the first season of Serial in March. I've never really been like a podcasty person, and Sarah, you gave me loads of recommendations. I thought I would start with that one because that seems
granddaddy of them all. I mean, that's
like
the
one that started it all, didn't it? And it's very well known, and it's very, and I actually really, really, really enjoyed it. I haven't listened to any more. Because I've just been reading and doing other stuff, but I had a very good time with it. I found it really interesting and enjoyable. So I sailed through it. I think I was listening to at least one episode every day in a row until I was done. It was very quick, and I was crocheting while I was doing that. So I'm making a granny square blanket that I have been making for. I think I started it in 2021. Maybe even 2020, and it's only 100 flipping granny squares, and granny squares like take 10 minutes,
right?
But and I'm not even halfway done because it's just one of those things I don't get out. So that was like the other thing with audiobooks and podcasts, is that it's encouraging me to get my crochet out again, which has been nice. So I made some more squares while I was listening to that, and then like wildcardy things. So I went early in the month. I went to the theatre with my friends, and we went to see a like Amdram version of Weird Sisters by Terry Pratchett, which was very, very good, and also very, very amateur dramatics. Like, they're a really good little group, but they are literally a very small local group who do it for fun in their spare time. And there was a lot of the prompter having to tell them their lines because they'd forgotten, and then the smoke screen broke, and just for 10 minutes up until the intermission, it just kept going off for no apparent reason, even though they were inside a castle. You're like, I don't really know what's happening. But it was fun. It was really good fun. Have either of you read Weird Sisters? It's a fun book. It's like Terry Pratchett does Shakespeare, so it's got a bit of Macbeth in there, and it's got a bit of Hamlet in there, and it's one of my favorites of the ones that I've read so far, actually. And they did a really, really good job. And then later in the month, towards the end of the month, I went to an event called Leaping Hare in Colchester. It's a pagan event that happens every year. It's like a really small local event that they do just in a small hall where they've got stalls, and then they've got people giving talks throughout the day, and then occasionally they've got workshops going on. So there was talks about crystal magic and ley lines and local gods, and then we went to one workshop which was actually fairly disappointing, to be honest, but it was about working with the elements in path working and stuff. It was a very long day, but I went with some friends, and the journey down was just really enjoyable. The journey back was really enjoyable. The event was really enjoyable. So,
well, I also did a fair amount of crocheting in March. I'm working on some Mother's Day gifts for my mother. And so while I was crocheting, in addition to the aforementioned audiobook, House with Good Bones, I also listened to a podcast. I'm not quite done with it yet. I think I have like one episode left, but it's called Ghost Story. And it's kind of wild. Like, it's a ghost story about a house that it involves the family from earlier in the 20th century of the actor Hugh Dancy, who later on does voices for some of the like reading parts of the series. And then it also involves the detective, who Scotland Yard detective, upon whom the character that Helen Mirren plays in Prime Suspect is based. And then it also involves the detective writer from the early 20th century, Dorothy Sayers, who is like one of my favorite mystery authors of all time. Like, it's kind of bonkers, like this story, like as it keeps going, like all these different people getting involved, but it's sort of like a ghost story and a murder mystery, and it's quite interesting. And so that's been kind of a fun podcast that I have been enjoying. But like I said, I haven't finished it yet. And aside from that, I also, one of my cousins invited me to go to a cooking class at the American Swedish Institute, which is here in the Twin Cities. And so it was like a Swedish food cooking class. Apparently they do lots of events there. And it was really quite fun, because like, it turned out that it wasn't the kind of cooking class where you're actually cooking. You're just like sitting around with a glass of wine, watching somebody else cook, and then you get to eat what they cook. Like,
that's
so,
amazing.
Yeah,
that sounds like my kind of class.
A cooking class. Like, I might do this again. Like, I didn't have to wear an apron. I was just sitting there, like, just watching somebody cook like it was a cooking show, and then they gave us food. So I was like, this is fabulous. So that was fun. So we might do that again, because we actually had a really good time with it. So
March was more social for Matt and me. We went to the we went to the DC Flea, so it's not like we were actually interacting with people, but we were out among people. Well, that's social enough, right? So we went to the DC Flea, which is it's like this antique expo that happens every few months, and Matt loves antiquing. We also went to Awesome Con, which is basically Washington DC's version of Comic-Con. And we go there not to see celebrities, but really to go shopping. There's a huge floor of just a bunch of vendors and artists, and you just spend hours upon hours just walking down, up and down each row, and seeing all the different stands full of crafts and other merchandise. And it's just really fun. Like, there's so much creativity, you know, people are so creative in the things that they make. And a lot of them have Etsy shops as well. And so, yeah, so we spent a good full day there. I've still been continuing with Korean lessons. And so that's been good. And that's really it hobby wise. So thank you everyone for tuning in and watching. By the time this video is uploaded, we will have completed another 3 Girls 1 Deck episode. So make sure you catch that. And then the next one that we have scheduled after that one will be on May 4th on Heather's channel. So hopefully we will see you then. And until the next time, hope you all are doing well. Much love and take care.